will never prosper. They don't know the way and they don't know the how. Mama, you should know this by now. And if you're feeling me, then you can sing it loud. Sing it loud. Will you lift up your voice and when people see me, they ask me, say, what think they make me shine every day? Now Baba upgrade me, I elevate, I elevate, I elevate. Enemies surround me, them done dead. Them nothing touch me, covered by grace. Now Baba upgrade me, I celebrate. I thank you cause you keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Thank you cause you keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Thank you cause you keep on blessing me. Do you like what you see? No need to they jealous me. Papa God blessing me. I go lift up my voice and sing. Do you like what you see? No need to they jealous me. It's Papa God blessing me. Thank you cause you keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Thank you cause you keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Keep on blessing me. Thank you cause you keep on blessing me.
Online 24/7. Tag Community Voice Radio. The radio station for Thurrock's BAME community. Subscribe, listen live, and download our app from the Apple and Google App Stores.
Yes, and welcome to Thurrock Talks, a show where we amplify the voice of the Thurrock community live on Tag Radio by yours truly, Kazeem Balogun. Right, the first thing I need you to do, you should know this by now, is I need you to follow us on all social media platforms. It's right there for you. So get your phones out, get your iPads out, get your phones out, and download us on. We are a online radio station, which means that you can literally hear us remotely 24/7. 7 days of the week. Okay, so what you want to do is get your phones out, get your iPhones out, get your Android phones out. If you are using Android, get your phones out. And if you are using the an Apple phone, you can literally just go to your Play Store and just type in Tag Radio. Okay, and if you're using an Android phone, you can go to your Play Store and just type in Tag Radio and download, and you can hear us 24/7 anywhere you are in the world. You could, for all I care, you could be on the beach. It's officially summer right now, so you could be on the beach having a wonderful time and just listening to Tag Radio. Okay. And also make sure to follow us on social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We are also on Spotify and on YouTube as well. It's at Tag Radio 1. Okay, it's at our handle is at Tag Radio 1. That's we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are now called X. Okay, we are X formerly called Twitter. We are also on Instagram, and we are on YouTube. So you can simply follow our handle at Tag Radio 1. And two things I need you to do on YouTube. You should know this by now. Number one, make sure you hit that subscription button so that you can automatically subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you also want to hit that notification button as well so that you are automatically updated whenever we release new content. Okay, you are tuned in to the Thurrock Talk show. This is a show where we amplify the voice of the community. This is a show for the community, by the community, broadcasting live on Tag Radio. Okay, right. We have a wonderful show packed in for you for all our listeners and viewers as well. Shout out to those who are watching live on Facebook, on YouTube. Hiya, hello. I can see you. Make sure you drop the comments in the below. Any comments, if you want to interact, or you got any questions you'd like to ask, or any comments, actually, you can drop comments in the comment section below. Okay, you could do that. Make sure you are actually doing that. You could also call us in the studio. I'd like to hear your voice, actually. You can call us on 07920 026 406. I repeat, 07920 026 406. Or you can call our second line, which is 07920 026 407. I repeat, 07920 026 407. The studio lines are officially opened. Right. Here on Thurrock Talks, the only thing we need to talk about, obviously, is the elections, the parliamentary elections that took place on the 4th of July. What I want to know, first and foremost, I'm being serious now. How many of you actually went out and cast your vote? How many of you went out on time to the relevant places to go and cast your votes? How many people of you actually took interest? Because obviously we have been talking about change for a very long time, and we all know that change begins when you decide to use your voice. Again, this is the Thurrock Talk Show. This is a show where we amplify the voice of the community. This is a show for the community, by the community, where we discuss concerns that are at the heart of the community. So the first thing is obviously elections. That's where change actually begins. Change begins from a leadership position. So what I want to know is how many of our listeners out there, and how many of our viewers out there, hiya, hello, and went out to actually vote. How many of you actually casted your votes? It would be interesting to actually know the numbers, because last time I checked, a particular party did great in the Thurrock community. So I want to know how many of you went out and casted your vote. How many of you took it seriously? Your voice is your power, okay? Your voice is your power. And if you are going to make any tangible change, any lucrative change, it starts from the perspective of you exercising your human right, actually, to vote. Your, what's the word they actually call it? There's a particular word, but it will come to my mind in just a minute. I've literally just gone blank. But there's a particular word that you are actually your judicial right. If I'm allowed to use that word, actually, you are expressing your judicial right to go, your civic right. That's it. That's even a better word. Just thank you to that. Thank you for that comment, actually. Thank you. Yeah, civic right was what I was meant to say. Yeah, civic right, judicial right. Okay, cool. Let's go with civic right. I want to shout out to that viewer that actually dropped a comment. Thank you. Civic right was what I actually got you for. Don't know what happened there. My mind just went blank. But yeah, how many of you? How many of you actually exercised your civic right to get out and cast your vote? Because that's where change actually comes from. That's where change actually stands from. Okay, it's about you going out there and exercising your right. So how many of you actually did that? It would be interesting to hear. Why don't we keep this conversation going? Why don't you follow us on social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube is at Tag Radio 1, okay? Or you can call us live in the studio and let us hear from you directly. This is a show for the community where we discuss critical issues that are at the heart of the community. So you can call us live in the studio on 07920 026 406. I repeat, 07920 026 406, or you can call our second line on 079-20026407 and join in on the conversations, okay? Because this is a very important issue, and we'd like to hear from you as to how many of you actually went out there to cast your vote during the parliamentary United Kingdom parliamentary elections that took place on the 4th of July 2024. Okay, we'd like to hear from you. I mean, okay, I've just got a question come in. Did I vote? That's great, thank you. But it's not about me, actually. It's not about, I mean, whether I voted. That's a great question. Did I vote, actually? I mean, whether I voted or not is actually inconsequential, okay? But I would like, it's not about me. It's about, this is a show for the community, by the community. And to be straightforward, that yes, I did vote, okay? If that actually answers your question. But whether I voted or not is actually inconsequential, okay? Because it's not necessarily about me, actually, and this show is for the community. So essentially, I would love to hear from you. I'd like to hear your views, actually. I'm only a presenter, so there is so much I can actually share, not necessarily my personal view, okay, and just to issue a disclaimer here, okay, it's not necessarily about my personal views, even though I can share my personal views, but my personal views are my personal views, okay? So it's not necessarily for you to go off a tangent on my personal views. They are just my personal human views, and according to human rights, I'm entitled to share those views. But that's a great question. Thank you for actually caring, and thank you for wanting to know if I voted or not. But whether I voted or not is completely inconsequential. What matters most is, did you vote? Did you actually step out and exercise your civic right to actually vote for the change you want to see? We all have our perspective of change. We all want things to actually change. I want things to change 100%, definitely, and I'm fine for a change. But okay, but this is a show for the community, so it's essentially not about me, less about me, it's more about you. So I'm interested to know, did you vote? Did you actually go out and cast your vote? Okay, fantastic. Right, so let's just revisit what happened. I've got some info here actually to share with you in regards to the UK parliamentary elections that took place on the 4th of July 2024. So here comes the information. Here we go. So the Labour Party has won an overwhelming victory in the election. Okay, so now comes the hard part. So the Labour Party actually won. They took, and you don't necessarily need to share what party you belong to, okay? That is a protected information, okay? Those of us that are aware of the Equality and Diversity Act, so you don't necessarily need to share with me what party you belong to, okay? That is your personal information. All right, that's your personal information. But if you do belong to a party, well done, that's a great place. Make sure you are attending all the meetings that that the party may have, and your voice, you are amplifying your voice, okay, to ensure that you are driving at change. But in accordance to the UK parliamentary election, word on the street is that, according to the votes, the Labour Party won an overwhelming victory in the UK parliamentary election that took place on the 4th of July 2024. But here comes the hard part. Right, the party faced the mammoth task of restoring chronically underfunded public services in time of economic hardship. So, and if you actually look at it, most of the public services are underfunded because of the issue of budget cut. I mean, budget cut is not a thing that actually started yesterday. It's been, I believe, according to research, if my memory also serves me right, this is since 2012. 2012, we've been experiencing the issues of budget cuts. I know we had the I believe we had the Olympics in 2012 as well. So that means that budget cuts must have been happening before that, because I know that a lot of services, were actually cut down. Services like, especially for like youth centers, for example, a lot of youth centers were actually closed down due to the issue of budget cuts. So budget cuts is not a new, it's not a new song that it's not, we had from budget cuts, that we moved into COVID, from prior to budget cuts, actually we also moved into gentrification. Certain areas were being developed, actually, and then the locals in those particular communities were being chucked out. The areas were being gentrified, everything expensive, actually. Then the locals who have been there from day one could not actually, they didn't have the resources to fight to maintain, maybe their property, their accommodation, what have you, and then they were actually chucked out to some next actual area. If you look at certain areas like Hackney and Brixton, Hackney was, oh my goodness, like prior to 2012, prior to, it was filled with BME, the Black Minority Ethnic Community. But if you look at Hackney now, Hackney is gentrified. It's literally gentrified, actually. If you look at Brixton, to a certain extent, Brixton is also gentrified. It's also gentrified, okay? So, we've been facing the issue of budget cuts, then we moved into gentrification, and then we moved into COVID-19. Goodness me, that was a very, very challenging, a very unprecedented time of the year. And then we moved into now high cost of living crisis. Only God knows what we're going to move into, all right? But the Labour Party is actually facing the mammoth task of restoring chronically underfunded public services in a time of economic hardship. Okay, political analyst, according to Tim Bell of Queen Mary University Queen's Mary University, said it was going to take huge funding to improve the state-funded National Health Service, the NHS. A key issue for a majority of voters, but other big ticket infrastructure items also need attention. All right, this, the issue of health requires urgent and immediate attention. And in my personal view, again, this is just my personal view, please, this is a disclaimer. This is what I'm about to say is actually my personal view, right? When you look at the National Health Service, we have to give it to them. They are doing their utmost best, actually. They are doing that. If there is any service, in my personal view, again, that requires funding, definitely the NHS. The NHS, because obviously, like, your health is your wealth. Your health is your wealth. But then again, saying that, though, most people who are exposed to better healthcare services, that's because they have monetary resources for them to do that. Okay, for them to do just that. They're not relying on the government. But then again, we also have to take into consideration those who may not necessarily be exposed to that monetary resources. They need this support. So if there is any organization, any entity that requires funding, in my personal view, again, okay, the NHS, because we need to be restored to good health. All right. So whether they can do that in time to satisfy public expectations, I think is the big question. So this is according to Tim Bell, and Tim Bell is a political analyst from Queen's Mary University. Okay. Several other top jobs in Prime Minister Keir. So at this point, we'd like to congratulate, we from Tag Community Voice Radio, we would like to congratulate the newly appointed Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Okay, so this is the new this is the new PM who will be taking over from Rishi Sunak, who was formerly the previous Prime PM, of the United Kingdom. And those of us that are thinking, well, why is PM? PM basically stands for Prime Minister. Okay, so PM. So if I say PM, I'm basically referring to Prime Minister. Okay, all right. So a big congratulations, a wonderful shout out to Keir Starmer, who has been announced the new PM of the United Kingdom. Okay, so according to David Lammy is one of my favorite political people as well. I don't know, I love listening to David Lammy. I just love listening to him. So David Lammy has been appointed the Foreign Secretary, while Yvette Cooper is the Home Secretary, looking after issues including immigration and policing. Okay, so these are the new cabinets that has been appointed. Okay, so again, for the benefits of those who may be tuning in late to this particular show, this is the Thurrock Talk Show, where we discuss issues that are at the heart of the community. This is a show for the community, by the community, and we are broadcasting live from Tag Radio with your boy, of course, Kazeem Balogun. Okay, so we are discussing strictly the UK parliamentary elections that took place on the 4th of July 2024, and I'm still waiting to hear from you. Actually, how many of you went out to cast your vote? How many of you actually went out to cast your vote? You could do so. You can engage in the conversations by calling us live in the studio on 07920 026 406, or you can call our second line on 07920 026 407, or you can also follow us on social media platforms, which we are on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. We are also on Spotify. We are also on Instagram. We are also on YouTube. It's at Tag Radio 1. You can get involved in the conversations. Okay, it will be interesting to know how many of you went out to cast your vote. Okay, so as I stated previously, the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has been announced, and the new PM is Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who would be the new PM of the United Kingdom. He has officially taken over from the former PM, which is Rishi Sunak. Okay, and David Lammy has been appointed to be the Foreign Secretary, while Yvette Cooper is now the Home Secretary, looking after key issues including immigration and policing. And you know what that means. Obviously, when there is a new PM, when new cabinet members are being appointed, I believe that laws would be reviewed. Certain legislations would be reviewed, so we should expect that. Okay, just preparing you guys now, preparing our viewers and listeners as well. It's time for us to be active. It's time for us to get active, because when we are talking about legislations, when we're talking about foreign policies, there is possibility that this will be reviewed. Okay, so it's very important for us to keep afloat. All right. John Healey was named the Defense Secretary. So John Healey has been announced as the Defense Secretary. Pat McFadden, Labour's National Campaign Coordinator, has been appointed Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. So Pat McFadden, who is the Labour's National Campaign Coordinator, has been appointed Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, the most senior minister in the cabinet after the Prime Minister. So he's going to be the most senior minister in the cabinet after the Prime Minister. I will just take that again for those who may have tuned in late, for those who are taking note, and for those who just by way of information, of informing the community of the recent UK parliamentary elections. So the new Prime Minister, the new PM for the United Kingdom, is PM Keir Starmer. Okay, so he is going to be the Prime Minister for the United Kingdom, while David Lammy has been appointed the Foreign Secretary, while Yvette Cooper is the Home Secretary looking after issues regarding immigration and policing. Pat McFadden, who is the Labour's National Campaign Coordinator, has been appointed Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, the Duchy, sorry, I stand to be corrected, Duchy of Lancaster, and according to this, Pat McFadden will be the most senior minister in the cabinet after the Prime Minister. Right, that is just wonderful. So Reeves as well, Reeves was put in charge of the country's finances. So Reeves was put in charge of the country's finances on Friday by the newly appointed PM Keir Starmer. So she gets a job and title Chancellor of the Exchequer that dates to the 16th century. So Reeves, R-W-E-V-E-S, Reeves was put in charge of the country's finances. Okay, so Rachel Reeves, actually, to be very, very specific, her full name is Rachel Reeves. Okay, Rachel Reeves is the newly appointed Britain's Treasury Chief. Okay, Treasury's chief. She was actually speaking during a general election campaign event. So she was actually speaking. So Rachel Reeves has been put in charge of the country's finances on Friday by the newly appointed PM Keir Starmer. So she gets the job title, actually, a job and title. So she will be the Chancellor of the Exchequer that dates to the 16th century. The former Bank of England economist faces the daunting task of delivering Labour's promise to get the economy growing and invest in public services while working with a large national debt. All right, so in accordance to a comment, I know that the road ahead will not be easy. There are no quick fixes and the hard choices lies ahead. So this is the comment that the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, had to say. So so she commented on Friday, Friday just gone. So she said, I know, so in quote, I'm actually quoting a comment word for word, I know that the road ahead will not be easy. There are no quick fixes and the hard choices lies ahead. So this is in accordance to a comment made by the newly appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. Right? Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner has been appointed as Britain's deputy Prime Minister. I'll take that one more time. Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner has been officially appointed as Britain's deputy Prime Minister. So this is second in command to the PM Keir Starmer. All right. So Angela Rayner was the first senior politician to be appointed by the newly appointed PM Keir Starmer as he begins the work of appointing his cabinet. So Rachel Rayner will also take the role of the Secretary for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. This is quite interesting. I can just literally, if you look at things holistically, that means that there is, this also trickles down to the local authorities. Okay, the whether it's Thurrock Council, whether it's Basildon Council, whatever constituency that you represent, that you actually fall under. Okay, there are going to be changes trickling down to those particular local authorities. So whether it's issues relating to housing or issues relating to communities, there are going to be changes. I mean, we are asking for a change, right? So embrace it. A change is coming, but we are hopeful that it's going to be a positive change. Okay, so Angela Rayner has often spoken about her tough background, growing up in a deprived public housing block and leaving school early as a young mom. Okay, she started her career as a trade union official before embarking on a career as a lawmaker. So she basically started her career as a trade union official. So for those of us who are wondering what is a trade union, for those listeners and viewers as well who are thinking what is a trade, it's a quick Google search actually, but I would just explain quickly because for the benefit of those who may not know what that is. So trade union are those is like an organization, like a body that actually represent those who are in employment. So if you are in employment, so for example those that work in public services, they will normally have a trade union to actually represent them if they were to be, I don't know, taken by their HR into disciplinary or taken into a matter that is of a formal, that is actually quite formal. They may actually have a trade union there to actually represent them. So most of those particular what's it called? So most of them will actually have, literally would actually have a trade union there to actually represent them. But that is a case of maybe they are going through the process of being dismissed in their workplace or whatever the situation might be. So they will normally have, and the trade union is normally up to date with policies, with laws and what have you, and they can actually represent their represent their member accordingly. Okay, so from a trade, from that particular angle, you could actually go into being a lawyer. I'll just give a personal example. I used to be a trade union, actually. I'll be very honest about that. I've gone into meetings where prior to becoming a presenter, okay, I do have a trade union background. I'm happy to share that, but what I'm not going to share is the organization that I joined, but because that's my that's quite personal. I don't have to share that, but for I do have a background in that particular field of work where I've actually represented a few of my members, at the time who were going through quite a difficult and challenging time in their places of work. But essentially, a trade union is who you would actually beckon to actually represent you in those difficult times. Okay, but one in a trade union is expected for you to be up to par, to know the policy of that in that particular organization, to know the policy, to know the procedures, to know the processes, and to also know the appropriate laws, the appropriate legislation. That's for the purpose if you are called upon to represent any member that belongs to that particular trade union. So if you are at work, and you are maybe going through a difficult time at work, I would encourage you, to consider, looking up trade unions that you can actually join, because they are there to support you, especially when you are going through issues of restructure in the workplace, and issues of what's that word again, if they want to make you redundant. The trade union will be there to actually support you and make sure that your rights are represented accordingly. Okay, so I'm quite it brings me joy actually to know that Angela Reyna actually started her career as a trade union official similar to mine before embarking on a career as a lawmaker. Okay, so there's that thing most trade unions have in common. You could actually transition into becoming a lawyer, because I remember when I was once upon a time a trade unionist. I was representing young members, young people, and it's quite, I don't know, like all my career I've always supported young people. I've always represented young people. Even as a presenter, I have a show later on called the Youth Sin Show. Isn't it? That's really funny, actually. Like, that's my calling. I mean, I don't know. I mean, throughout my life, I've always, represented and supported young people, whether it's in professional workplaces or whether it's what I do by way of my volunteering capacity as a radio host or what have you. I even have a show called Youth Sin Show, where it's targeted and a lot more dedicated to the youth. So when I was a trade union back then, I represented my members, where I was the young members officer. So I was always representing young people, in the place of work, whether those who are an apprentice, those who were just volunteers, or those who were young professionals in their places of work. I always represented them. So, but that took a lot of studying, because I remember then, I did a courses. I also did a course in employment law. So I do know a thing or two about employment law. I did a lot of work under the umbrellas of employment law, and those who are working in public services, again in local authorities, I would just encourage you to always look at the ACAS website, ACAS, the ACAS website, because a lot of the policy that are being formulated by local authorities. My words today, what's wrong with me? Actually stems from that. Okay, so when you look at most of your HR procedures, actually your HR policies, I would say policy, because there's a difference between policy, procedure, and processes. I'm not here to explain that, but maybe next time I'll drill down on what a policy means, what a procedure means, and what a process means, because obviously these are three different things, three different documents, actually, because most of the policy actually stems from legislation. Most of the things in your procedure actually stems from the policy, and most of the things that are in your process actually stems from your procedure. So there are three different things: policy, procedure, process. Again, policy, procedure, process. They are three different documents, three different things. They don't mean the same thing: a policy, a procedure, and a process. Okay, maybe next time I'll take time to actually explain that, so those of us who are in professional places of work can have a better understanding of what a policy is, what a procedure is, and what the process is. But going back to most of your HR policies, so those who are working in public services, in local government bodies, most of your policies stems from legislation. Okay, so when you read your policy documents, what you ought to see that they are making, if you look at the legislative context, so the legislative context will refer to the legislations they are using regarding the particular policy. So I will encourage you to read your policy and make sure you are up to date with the legislation. I mean, you could literally, if you want to know anything about legislation, you just do a quick Google search, or you can actually go to laws.gov.uk. I believe it is LAWS, laws.gov.uk. I repeat that, laws, LAWS, laws.gov.uk, and it has, goodness me, it has a conglomerate of the laws that have been established in the United Kingdom as far back as in the 1930s, in the 1940s, in the 1950s, and when those laws were actually ratified, when those amendments were, and the relevant sections that were actually amended. So you could go, when you're talking about data protection, for example, we know that data protection originally came into force in 1988, but then you have the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations, that came into force in 2018, which there were added sections to that. So the GDPR actually stems from DPA 1988, but there were other things that were added to the GDPR that came into force in 2018. I'm not here to talk about law, but maybe another time I would. But if you wanted to know more, I'm someone that is interested in law. So if you wanted to know more about law, you can go into laws, laws.gov.uk, and you can have a thorough understanding of the laws in the UK. So laws about social care, laws that guide children, laws about, I don't know, housing, housing act, the several housing act out there. So that way you are kind of empowered from a place of legislative contest. So if you, again, for those who work in the local authorities, if you wanted to, what you could do is go into ACAS, ACAS Code of Conduct, ACAS. So once upon a time, a trade union, I was trained on, as I said, employment law. So I did it up to at level 3, I think. So I'm quite aware, I have quite a detailed understanding of the employment law. But most of our listeners and viewers who work in local government, you could go into ACAS Code of Conduct, and because most of the HR policies that are being created actually stems from ACAS. So a lot of their disciplinary procedure, grievance procedure, leave procedure, a lot of that, pay, what have you, a lot of that actually stems from ACAS Code of Conduct. So that is to say, most of the policies being created by local authority bodies has to conform to ACAS Code of Conduct. And you could take it a step further by going to laws, laws.gov.uk, and you could also look at the employment law, the legislative context of the employment law. So there's a lot of information out there. Don't be ignorant, okay? Go in there and do your own research, okay? Don't wait to be told. Go in there and do your own information. Maybe one day I'll be a lawyer, I'll be a barrister. I mean, never say they say never say never, right? Maybe one day I will venture off into, I've always wanted to, actually. So maybe one day, I'll be in court. I'll be called to the bar. Imagine me in the uniform. Imagine me in the uniform, actually. And maybe one day I might be a judge. But I really love the idea of representing people, pursuing justice for people. I'm in love with that idea, and that was the reason why I became a trade union, where I became a young members officer, representing and fighting for the rights of young professionals, of young people, especially those who were apprentices, who did not know their right, who were being exploited. Okay, boy, like you do anything to those people, you're looking for my trouble. I'm just saying. So it's quite interesting to see how Angela Rayner here has that trade union official, something that I can definitely connect and relate with before embarking on a career as a lawmaker. That actually encouraged me that I can actually transition from that particular area, or I can go back into it if I actually want to. I can transition from that particular area, from a trade union official, into embarking as a lawmaker. So maybe that's giving me ideas now, but okay, let me just leave it there. But that's quite interesting. So let me stop digressing and come back. Reform UK Nigel Farage. So who was the reform? When we're talking about reformation, so we have the Reform UK, who was once upon a time the actual lead of UK reform, Nigel Farage, who has long been on Britain's most divisive politicians, was booed and heckled by several protesters before he delivered a speech in London. Several protesters were escorted out of the room as the right-wing politician repeatedly shouted "boring" at their heckling. Farage told one of the protesters to return to the pub. Farage, who is 60 years old, won a seat in Parliament for the first time after 7 previous failed attempts. Wow. So Farage, 60 years of age, won a seat in Parliament for the first time after 7 previous failed attempts. Wow, what can we actually learn here? Simple: never give up. Because you failed in the past does not mean you're gonna fail again. Keep going. So I mean, he could have said, you know what, this is the 7th time, doesn't look like I'm getting anywhere, but he actually continues. So for the first time after 7 previous failed attempts, his newly formed Reform Party won 4 of the House of Commons 650 seats in Thursday's election on the back of a campaign focused on cutting immigration in Britain. Farrage's campaign was tainted by a string of controversies sparked by racist or misogynistic comments reported made by his candidates. On Thursday, he said he was going to professionalize his party, adding those few bad apples that have crept in will be long gone and will never have any of their type back in our organization. All right. After a few hours of sleep to shake off a night of celebration and an audience with the king, Keir Starmer stepped through the front door of 10 Downing Street for the first time as Prime Minister on Friday. When he did, he entered the alternate reality of a man who meets regularly with King Charles III and has ultimate control of Britain's nuclear missiles, all while adjusting to life in a creaking 17th century landmark and trying to balance his work with his personal life. All right, one of the first items, one of the first items on the agenda of the new UK PM, Keir Starmer, is to appoint a new cabinet, which he has successfully done. The new ministers will emerge one by one from 10 Downing Street once Starmer makes his peak. Okay, the UK has hit its first change in government in 14 years. 14 years after the Labour Party won. I mean, the last time we had a PM from the Labour Party, I think, was from Gordon Brown. And I mean, I stand to be corrected, but I think Gordon Brown directly took over from Tony Blair. Not that he was elected. I mean, I stand to be corrected. Okay, but the last time we had a PM from the Labour Party stands back from Gordon Brown, and ever since, on the seat, it's always been from the Conservative Party. But it's quite interesting to see that this it has things are transitioning back to Labour. To Labour. I mean, what are your thoughts actually? What are your thoughts? I'm quite keen for you to share your thoughts on our social media handles. You could share your thoughts actually. That would be great for you to share. You could all follow us on social media handles on Facebook, on Twitter, now known as X, on Instagram, on YouTube as well. You could actually just follow us at Tag Radio 1 is our handle. At Tag Radio 1 is our handle. At Tag Radio 1. You could follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, now called X, on Instagram, and on YouTube. What I need you to do though on YouTube is to hit the notification button so that you are automatically updated whenever we release new content. And also what I also need you to do is to hit that subscription button as well, so you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also call us live in the studio on 07920-026-406 or 07920-026-407. All right, so the UK has its first change in government in 14 years after the Labour Party won a landslide victory early Friday in a general election that saw the Conservative Party suffer its biggest defeat ever. The new government faces huge challenges, as we expect them to, including fixing the country's sluggish economic and social malaise resulting in part from Brexit. Okay, that's another thing that we actually faced. We also faced the dire consequences of Brexit, the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and several Conservative Party scandals. All right, some more quotes from Starmer's speech before he entered the famous black door of number 10 Downing Street. So these are some of his famous quotes. So I quote, "My government will make you believe again." My government, according to Keir Starmer, my government will make you believe again. We will rebuild Britain. We will rebuild Britain. Brick by brick, we will rebuild the infrastructure of opportunity. Brick by brick, we will rebuild the infrastructure of opportunity. And last but not the least, he vowed to lead a government of service on a mission of national renewal. Wow, those are four wonderful promises, wonderful pledges, and we are going to be holding him accountable to those particular promises. We are going to be holding him accountable. Make sure, I'll just take those one more time. According to Keir, actually, where did I get Keir from? According to the newly appointed PM, I will just leave you with these four promises of his. So according to our newly appointed PM, Keir Starmer, is four promises. Number one, my government will make you believe again. We will rebuild Britain. Brick by brick, we will rebuild the infrastructure of opportunity. And last but not the least, he vowed, why do I keep saying Keith? The newly appointed PM, Keir Starmer, has vowed to lead a government of service, a mission of national renewal. A mission of national renewal. You know, the PM Keir Starmer is giving his first speech outside of number 10 Downing Street as the new leader of the UK, United Kingdom. He started off by thanking his predecessor, Rishi Sunak, before saying the work of change begins immediately. The work of change has begun immediately. Once more, we want to congratulate our newly appointed PM, Keir Starmer, for the wonderful victory. You know, I'm sure you will join us in congratulating him as the newly appointed PM, and we are looking forward to those wonderful changes he's going to bring in his constituency in the United Kingdom. And that will be all for today's show. That will be all for the Thurrock Talk show. You know, a show for the community, by the community. You know, this is a show where we actually amplify the voice of the community. Okay, and thank you so much for tuning in. It's been wonderful. Just before I sign off, you know, I can't sign off without actually thanking, you know, my team. First and foremost, want a big shout out to the director of Tag Radio, Councillor Buki Okunade. You know, also want to shout out to the management team, Pastor Bengala Wow and Mr. Deji Adeaga. Also want to shout out to my fellow colleague presenters, Mike Dare. Want to shout out to Pastor Hehe as well. Also want to shout out to, you know, one of our exec producers, Mr. Deji Daudu. Also want to shout out to our IT guru, you know, the man behind the scenes that make us look good, Ayo. And most importantly, we want to give a big shout out to our listeners out there, our active listeners and active viewers who tune in week and week out to the Thurrock Talks show, a show where we amplify the voice of the community. Okay, thank you. It's been a wonderful show. Make sure you actually follow us on social media handles, on Facebook, on Twitter, now called X, on Instagram, and on YouTube is at Tag Radio 1. Okay, have yourself a wonderful, a joyous, a fun-filled weekend until we bring you another episode of the Thurrock Talk show, a show where we amplify the voice of the community live on Tag Radio with yours truly, Kazeem Balogun. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend and see you next time.